Bible worm, reading the Bible with Bible worm.
Welcome to Bible Worm, getting to the core of the biblical text. I'm Dr. Robert Williamson, professor of religious studies at Hendrix College and theologian in residence of Canvas Community in Little Rock, Arkansas.
And I'm Dr. Amy Robertson, Director of Lifelong Learning and Music at Congregation Or Hadash in Sandy Springs, Georgia. We're here every week to discuss the biblical text, both as biblical scholars and as people of faith, one Jewish, one Christian.
This week, we're continuing our series on Revelation and resistance with Revelation 13, 1-18, and 17, 1-6. We examine the grotesque images of the beasts rising from land and sea as images of the Roman Empire, a misshapen, deceptive, and violent creature trapping people unknowingly in the worship of Satan. Then we turn our attention to woman Babylon, the beautiful seductress whose goblet is filled with the blood of the saints. Having these images before us gives substance to our unknown fears, we think, making visible that which lurks at the edges of our consciousness. More than that, perhaps, these images invite us to unmask the beastliness and seduction of the empire in our own day. How are we unwittingly seduced and coerced into the worship of violence? Thanks for joining us. Hey, Amy, how are you this fine day?
I am okay.
You sent me maybe my favorite text ever this morning that just said, dude, Revelation 13, what? There were no question marks in there. It was just like a statement.
No, there were periods, what? I think. Yes, it was just like, what?
Yes.
I don't even know what question to ask. I know last week we were all the way back at the beginning of Revelation, and I was like, yeah, like I love mysticism and mystical ways of seeing the world and whatnot. And then I got to this chapter and I was like, oh yeah, no, this is not my home turf anymore. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. But it was a delightful experience though for you anyway, wasn't it?
It was a curious experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of the experience that you're having is the experience that Revelation kind of wants you to have, which is that it presents these images to us that are very big and very powerful and not entirely clear. And so this is what our seer, John of Patmos, was seeing, and he didn't understand it either. And so he has to ask lots of questions and he has to have it interpreted for him by the angel. And what we're getting to see is sort of like a heavenly view of reality or something like that, like we talked about last time. And I mean, of course it doesn't make sense to us, right? Like it's godly stuff. It's like divine stuff that we're getting to see.
Right.
But is like a little bit big for our feeble human minds.
Yeah, right. It is like trying to encapsulate the wholeness of some great mystery that is really beyond some kind of like linear progression that we could just put in tidy words and say, here are the equations that make all of this make sense. You know, like, yeah, it's meant to evoke all the things, but yeah, it does evoke all the things.
Amy, part of the reason for some of the confusion, at least, is that in my either wisdom or foolishness, I have jumped us from Revelation 1, where we were last week, to Revelation 13, which is where we are this week. We're in 13, 1-18, and then we're going to skip even yet still more over to 17, 1-6. And then next week, we're going to jump backwards in the book to where we were previously.
Yeah, why'd you do that, Williamson?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, we should just say this is different than what the Working Preacher series has. And so if you're following the Working Preacher series, I don't know quite how you handle that. Like maybe you just are a week off. I don't know how you handle it. The reason that I set the series this way is because I think I might actually be following Nelson Craybill, who writes a book called Apocalypse and Allegiance that has been very useful to me. But this chapter 13 and 17, they are sort of unveiling the Roman Empire as it appears from the perspective of God. And so it's a little bit this like, we need to get the symbols, like what is the Roman Empire up to and what is its nature before we can make sense of the call to Christians to sort of be doing something else. Now, John of Patmos told it, he started in chapter 1 and went straight through. And so he did not necessarily think that you needed what I think we need. So whatever, I could be totally wrong about this. But to me, it's helpful to know, like, what are we resisting before we start talking about how we're going to resist.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I think for all the sort of mystery that it might bring up for us, I mean, in some ways there would be mystery in any case, but it is a powerful thing to know. Yeah, just as you're saying, what to know the what and then get to the, I don't know, how or why or something like that later.
Amy, the one thing that I do think is really important in terms of setting the stage for Revelation 13 is just back one chapter in Revelation 12. There we get a story about the great serpent, the dragon, who is said to be Satan. And the story that's told there is of the dragon, who is one of the heavenly beings, getting into a war with God's angels. And God's angels win the victory, and they cast the serpent out of heaven, and the serpent sort of tumbles down to the earth. And so, Revelation 13 is picking up with this idea that there is a force of evil in the world that is divine in its nature, that has been defeated in the heavenly realm where it really matters, but it is still very much active and alive in the earthly realm, which is where we live our lives. The end of chapter 12 says in verse 17, the dragon was furious and he went off to make war on the rest of the children of the church. That is it says the rest of her children, but talking about Christians. The dragon went to make war on Christians, those who keep God's commandments and hold firmly to the witness of Jesus. So the dragon is at loose. The dragon is defeated. The dragon still has power, and the dragon is, basically trying to take out as many Christians as it can before its time expires. And that's the background for this text we're about to read.
Fascinating. That's fascinating. That has me thinking in so many different directions, but I think they will take us off the path.
Can you give us one direction that it's taking you? And if it takes us off the path, we'll just wander back.
The first thing I thought of was actually the disciples around Jesus and how one of them becomes this adversary and sort of gets kicked out of the circle, and whether there's some kind of parallel there.
Yeah.
The other parallel in my mind that I think will come up more concretely in our reading is this sort of mythical underpinning that is in the Hebrew Bible text as well. This idea that there's sort of this force of chaos in the world, these, monsters or chaotic forces in general, that some biblical texts make it seem like it has been destroyed, but some biblical texts make it seem like it has been neutralized for now, but it is not gone.
Yes.
And so the idea that this dragon creature, Satan, was defeated in the heavenly realm, but is not gone.
Yes.
And can yet still, drag Christians off the path.
Yes.
There's some kind of meta narrative there.
Very much so. I really appreciate that. The story we're telling in Revelation is not a new story. It has very deep roots in the Hebrew Bible. You're reminding me of your teacher John Levinson's book, Creation and the Persistence of Evil. Is that what you have in mind?
One of my favorites.
Yeah. So even in the Hebrew Bible, God is in charge of the world, but there is this sort of chaotic underpinning to it. And so things don't always work out the way that maybe you think they should. Revelation is very much working on that theme. All right, Amy. Well, today we're going to read a little bit in Revelation 13 and a little bit in Revelation 17. And these are going to give us I think what's happening is the major symbols through which we should think about the Roman Empire. Are you ready to get started?
I will not be more ready in 5 minutes, so I think we should get started.
Dude, Revelation 13. What?
What?
Okay, I'm actually going to start in 12:18, which is where the CEB starts. And I think it actually adds a nice little, detail.
Yeah.
Then the dragon stood on the seashore. Okay, I'm just going to stop there. So the dragon that has been cast out of heaven takes its stand on the seashore. It's got I've pictured it as having 1 foot in the sea, 1 foot on the land. And the question is how's it going to make war on the followers of Jesus. So here's the moment where the dragon starts to make war. And I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads. Each of its horns was decorated with a royal crown, and on its head were blasphemous names. The beast I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's. Its mouth was like a lion's mouth. The dragon gave it his power, throne, and great authority. One of its heads appeared to have been slain and killed, but its deadly wound was healed. So the whole earth was amazed and followed the beast. They worshipped the dragon because it had given the beast its authority. They worshipped the beast and said, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" Okay, Amy, so the way the dragon is going to make war on the earth is by calling a beast out of the sea. Mm-hmm. And so thinking back in your Hebrew Bible, creation and the persistence of evil, can you talk a little bit about what images of either beasts or seas or both occur to you?
So the sea monster that I know from the Hebrew Bible is named Leviathan. And I actually think of him as he is depicted in a Psalm 104, where he's kind of like a plaything. Like I picture God sort of like throwing a frisbee for Leviathan and they're like sporting together.
Yeah.
But there's a sense that it's only that way because God is so clearly the like alpha in this relationship, and that left to his own devices, Leviathan is this like incredibly powerful and destructive force. Yeah. He comes up in Job too, right? Yeah,
we read that text. I can't remember if we read that part of that text last year or not, but he's in Job 41. He's this ferocious creature that breathes fire, and then like the question is like, who can control Leviathan? And the answer is nobody except that God can. And so he's this like force of chaos in the world, or like force of danger. And God is able to tame him, but other than God, he is like running loose in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I just have this sense, not that it's like my original sense, but in a lot of the texts of the Hebrew Bible and into rabbinic literature, that the waters that are present at the creation of the world, like it's not that there's nothing there. It's like darkness and chaos.
Right.
And a lot of what God is doing is kind of organizing things and putting boundaries in place so that the water can be here, and there can, maybe be water. It's imagined that there's water in the sky and that's why it's blue, but it's held back in some way. It doesn't just rain all the time. And there is some dry land in the rabbinic literature, which I think connects back to some of these ancient myths. These chaotic waters they're described as the Tehom, the waters of the deep. And they're sort of shoved down into the center of the earth, and there's like a stone that's covering the place where they could pop up and like erupt and create chaos again. And the temple is built on top of the stone as like the ultimate dresser to put in front of your overfull closet. Yeah. But they're always looking to come back out. Like they're not gone; they're just controlled. And so what I see in this text is like the mere presence of the dragon at the shore, like, invites back out of the water this chaotic, like, frightening force that was present before. It's not, in my understanding, that Satan created it, but somehow enables it to come back from the sort of gates that have held it back and, inhabit its full self.
I love that, Amy. The other text that's in the back of my head when I read this is Daniel 7. Daniel, as you well know, is half of the book is these nice little court tales about a kid named Daniel. And then the second half of the book is these apocalyptic visions. And so Daniel has this vision in chapter 7, and he says 4 giant beasts emerged from the sea. The first was a lion with eagle's wings. Then I saw another beast like a bear. Suddenly there was another beast like a leopard, that had 4 heads. And then a fourth beast that was more powerful than the other 3. So if you look at the beast in Revelation, it's those 4 beasts like mushed together, which is really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then in the vision in Daniel goes on to tell us that the 4 beasts are the 4 empires that have ruled the world. There's some debate about what exactly empires he's talking about, but maybe Babylonia, Media, Persia, and Greece. And so the beasts that rise out of the sea in Daniel are empires. They're like governmental entities, basically, like the ruling powers of the world. So if you look at that as background to our beast in Revelation 13, what kind of connections might you make?
I just have to say, like, it is literally masterful in weaving together these like ancient mythic stories of the ultimate unraveling of what God wants to be in the world, with these images from Daniel that seem to be identifying empires in the world.
Yes.
And smushing them all together in a way that's sort of like, that matches up this sort of like mythical, cosmic story. I don't know if history is the right word. The unfolding of the cosmos in some way has like locked into the unfolding of human history through the rising of different empires. And it's very scary.
It's scary. And it feels to me like there's truth there in a very real sense. Like if we follow Daniel 7, then the beast that's coming out of the sea is in some way the empire of John's day, which is Rome. And I'm taking that step. I don't think it's a far step. I don't know how to read Revelation if I don't take that step. And so this beast is in some way, I think, representing the Roman Empire. If you read it that way, then it is a beast that is in linear succession to these other 4 beasts that have come before it, which is historically true. It is more powerful than them. It has in some ways combined their aspects. It is not a novum in the world. It is building on things that have come before it. It's learned how to be a beast by taking on characteristics of the beasts that came before it. And in my mind, that like it's so interesting then to think about like the empires that have ruled the world historically and the ways that they do. I mean, Rome did build, like it took over Greek culture and like transposed it in a military way. And that's how Rome came to be. And then, you know, the British Empire did the same thing with the Roman Empire, you know, and so on and so forth. And yet still today. So what we've got then is a beast that seems to be Rome, that is rising out of the sea in the way that we've seen other beasts in Daniel 7, and then Leviathan and the sea itself. So we've got this like force of chaos. We're told that the dragon gave it his power, throne, and great authority. What do you make of that line?
You know, it stood out to me when you read it because of the inflection of your voice. When you said it, I understood the his to be the dragons.
Yeah.
And when I just read it on the page, I didn't necessarily understand that. I thought, you know, whatever. But I'm going to follow your inflection there. And that brings me to the question, why can't the dragon just do this stuff on his own?
Yeah.
Why does he have to raise up another beast and give his authority to that beast?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't maybe know the why, but I do know the that. And so in Revelation, it seems to be, and it's true in Daniel as well, but in Revelation more precisely so, that the way the dragon enters into the world is through earthly entities that have physical reality in the world. And so when we look for Satan at work in the world, we shouldn't look for like a dragon or a little pointy-eared dude with calves' hooves or whatever. We should look for earthly entities that are acting in a dragon-like way. And so, like, how does Satan work in the world? How does evil work in the world? Well, it comes through human structures. Like the
That's
empire.
confusing here because the thing that it brings into the world is not like something that's in the world. It has 7 heads and 10 horns.
Yeah, so you have to read through Daniel, which says dragons that rise out of the sea are empires.
No, I gotcha.
We're looking at the empire the way that it is, I don't know, you could say is in its reality, or the way it is when God looks at it, which is that, I mean, it looks real pretty when we look at it, right? It has like marble statues and whatever. But in its essence, it's a 7-headed beast that exercises the authority of Satan.
I see. Oh, yeah. You really have to read on a couple different levels then.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. All at once. In verse 4, it says the people worshipped the dragon because it had given the beast its authority. Then it says they worshipped the beast and said, who is like the beast? And so what seems, at least in my reading, to be happening is the people are super impressed by the beast. And so they worship the beast, but they don't really understand necessarily that the beast is exercising the dragon's authority. They think it has its own authority. So they end up worshiping the dragon sort of by proxy. And if they actually knew they were worshiping the dragon, they might say, oh, no, we're not going to worship the dragon. Like, that's a dragon.
Right.
But they're like, ooh, the empire, that's amazing. And so then that's how the beast gets its worship, is by creating this other thing that deceives people.
Yes. I had to sit with that verse for a minute because it can be read different ways in that translation. They worship the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast. You could read it as they worship the dragon, like since he had or because he had, but I agree with your reading. I ultimately came to the same reading as you. They were like sort of worshiping the dragon indirectly because they worship the beast, and the power of the beast came from the dragon.
There's this weird little verse. I don't know if we're going to do anything with it or not, but in verse 3, so it's got 7 heads. One of its heads appeared to have been slain and killed, but its deadly wound was healed. So the earth was amazed and followed the beast. So we have like a little resurrection event?
Yeah, kind of like a mini death and resurrection thing, which is legit confusing for the people.
Yeah.
Like, that's confusing because we've just had this whole, we have a whole sort of religion that is not built on the resurrection, but the resurrection of Jesus is really important.
really important.
Really important.
Yeah.
And so to witness another mini resurrection, it's one of the heads, not all of the heads. I don't know. I see how that's confusing.
One of the things that we're going to see is that the beasts can do things and say things that if you are not paying close attention, you might confuse with Jesus. And here's one of them. There is a slain head, appears to have been resurrected. You think, oh my gosh, came back from the dead.
Yes.
And so you're super impressed by that and you worship that. And it turns out it's just the head of a beast that is doing other things. But you thought, oh, power of life and death, like this must be a good thing. When the people worship the beast in verse 4, their question is, who is like the beast and who can fight against it? What do you think about that? Like, that's their reaction?
It is Micha Mocha Ba'ilim Adonai. Like, it is Exodus 15. Who is like you among the gods? When God splits the sea, again, going back to that like epic that underlines so much of the story, that the sea is chaos and God controls the sea. And now they have seen something that they think is the equivalent of that power is a problem.
So they're saying something to the beast that one rightly should say of God. Is that what you're after?
Yeah.
That is so powerful, Amy. The other piece of that I read too is like, it's a little bit of a like helplessness. Like, what could you possibly do? Like, this beast is so powerful. Who can fight against it? Like, that's like a legitimate question, like that it's a debilitation. I like seeing both of those at the same time, like misattributing things that belong properly to God, and also like, well, if the beast is that powerful, like, what can you do? And kind of going along.
Hello, fellow Bible worms. My name is Amy Marie Epp. I'm a pastor at Seattle Mennonite Church in Seattle, Washington. I support Bible Worm at the early worm level, $8 a month, and I consider that professional budget dollars very well spent. What I especially love about being a patron at this level is having access to those podcast episodes a week early, since I'm often working that far ahead on sermons or on worship prep. Also, by the way, I love the sticker, which I put on my water bottle immediately. Amy and Bobby's insight and wisdom have become an invaluable resource for me. I look forward every week to hearing them chew through that biblical text together with curiosity and with humor. It feels like I'm a part of the conversation. That's why I wanted to support them in making Bible Worm possible. It still feels like a gift each week to have that Patreon episode land in my inbox. I hope all of you who are listening will also consider becoming patrons. And now, back to this week's episode.
All right, I'm picking up in verse 5. The beast was given a mouth that spoke boastful and blasphemous things, and it was given authority to act for 42 months. It opened its mouth to speak blasphemies against God. It blasphemed God's name and his dwelling place, that is, those who dwell in heaven. It was allowed to make war on the saints and to gain victory over them. It was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All who live on earth worshipped it, all whose names hadn't been written from the time the earth was made in the scroll of the life of the Lamb who was slain. Whoever has ears must listen. If any are to be taken captive, then into captivity they will go. If any are to be killed by the sword, then by the sword they will be killed. This calls for endurance and faithfulness on the part of the saints. So the first thing that we get here is a beast speaking blasphemous things. What do you make of that image of the blasphemous, spewing blasphemies part of the beast?
It just is, it's held in such, I mean, okay, before this part, we know that this beast has risen out of the sea because the dragon has called it out of the sea. And perhaps other people should have been suspicious because of various things. But this is the point for me. And like, okay, the people who were misled, they said the Micha Mocha thing, that's not so great.
Yeah.
But then the beast starts speaking blasphemy against God.
Yeah.
So I guess my question then is it too late to turn things back? Like they've already, somehow this beast already has enough authority that by the time it's speaking blasphemy and the people realize or should realize that this is an ungodly force, it's too late? Or are they already so convinced that they don't even notice that this is a problem, or they think maybe this beast is stronger than God, or I don't know. That's what it has me wondering about.
That's really important, Amy. Like my own reading is that the people don't figure out that the dragon is animating the beast. Maybe ever. And part of what Revelation is doing is saying to the reader of Revelation, like, hey, you, open your eyes, right? This is dragon speak here. But people who have not read Revelation or who haven't understood in a sort of revealed way, they just think that the beast is awesome. And if the beast is the Roman Empire, then this is a statement about the persuasiveness of the empire. It depends on what blasphemies means a little bit, Amy, right? Like if it's there are direct kinds of blasphemies that you could say that are very clearly like God is not really God or whatever. There's also blasphemies that you could speak in which you claim to be God like yourself. And that to me has more energy in it. That empires, rulers, I mean, we see it today even, like to claim that they are the source of life and death, or that they control the earth, or that all the good things that happen in the world happen because of them. And those are like imagining that you are God is every bit as blasphemous as saying that God is not God, even if it's a little misdirected. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it's not as obvious in the world. You know, it's you can pick it out when someone is saying God is not God, but there are a lot of ways in which we live in a world where people are claiming in some way or another power that should be reserved for God. And that gets fuzzier, I guess. Or even lifting up God's name for things that are not godly. Like I'm thinking to the third commandment or whichever commandment it is. And I get confused about the various traditions. Yeah. But, to say like God is on our team as we bomb the crap out of somebody. Like that is also blasphemous. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The beast is allowed to make war on the saints and to gain victory. So its mode is violence. Is that how you read? I don't know how else you would read that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I didn't know if it meant it makes war on the saints and somehow like converts their hearts away from God, or if it means like physically, is violent.
I like that, Amy. Like I like holding both of those ideas, like physical violence, like it makes war, and also it can trick you or compel you in some other ways, threaten you. This word victory, Nike in the Greek, is an important word in Revelation. It's an important word in Roman culture, like the way Roman emperors demonstrated their emperorness was by winning victory. So this is like why they made memorial arches, like the Arc de Triomphe and those kinds of things, was to say, look, we go out and we win victory, and you can see how powerful we are. And so the military victory of a Roman emperor was kind of key to their authority. And so maybe we've got something like that going on here as well. The passive voice there, it was given authority. Does that bug you?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the nature of your buggedness?
Yeah, my translation is, I feel like it even is a little more passive. It says, it was allowed to exercise authority.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think I had not entirely understood reading this on my own that it was the dragon that was giving authority to this beast in the first place.
Yeah.
But even now, I would say it was allowed to exercise authority. Like I really am sort of like, where is God in this?
Yes.
Why is God allowing this to? It's still God's kingdom on earth. Like,
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the role of the people on earth. Like the people are allowing it to exercise authority. Like it has some power that it has been given, but you know, I feel as a human being complicit in this story.
I love that reading, Amy. The people are allowing it to have authority over them. I had not read it that way. I had read it as somewhere between the dragon and then this sort of apocalyptic question of like, where is God? But one of the things that, you know, just religion in general has to deal with is if God is God, then why is the world so messed up? And here it seems to be that God is allowing the dragon, is allowing the beast to do some stuff for a while until God's going to re-enter history a little bit later.
Yeah.
We get reference to the scroll of life here. It seems like there are some people whose names have been written in the book and they are not persuaded. Anything I want to do with that?
Well, who's the lamb? Is that Jesus?
Oh yeah, this is an important bit that we skipped.
Okay.
In Revelation 5, as we'll see next week, the lamb is a key image for who Jesus is in the book of Revelation. So the book of the lamb is those who follow Jesus. Yeah.
Okay, so like Christians are saved from this? Like all the inhabitants of the earth? My translation actually has future tense here. All the inhabitants of the earth will worship it, except for Christians? Is that what it's saying?
Well, it's saying people whose names are written in the book of life. I have two cautions about using the word Christian there. One I feel more strongly about than the other, which is that not all Christians have their names written in the scroll of the book of life. And we will see that in Revelation as we go.
Okay.
So just saying that you are a follower of the Lamb does not mean that you actually are a follower of the Lamb. And therefore, you might be surprised that your name is not actually written in the book. I think there's also a question of whether people who are not self-acknowledged followers of the Lamb could be in the book. And I don't know the answer to that question.
No. But there's some group of people. And apparently around Roman times, there was also the ancient Jewish community was debating whether there was some kind of like predestination thing happening to like some kind of book like this that your name could be written in and that meant something about your fate.
Yeah, absolutely. These scrolls have a history. That in that Daniel 7 text, God opens up the scrolls and looks. There it's not people, individuals, but it's the nations and who's done right and wrong. Yeah. Amy, the last line in this little section, whoever has ears must listen. And so it's like, hey, you, if you're not paying attention, like this is about you too. And then we get this line, if you're to be taken captive, then you'll go into captivity. Mm-hmm. The CEB has, if you are to be killed by the sword, then they will be killed by the sword. What does the NRSV have right there?
Mine is different. If you kill with the sword you must be killed.
Yeah. There are manuscripts of Revelation that preserve both of those readings. Mm. The NRSV seems to be, if you are a person who lives by violence, you're going to die violently. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the message is, so don't be a person who lives by violence. Mm-hmm. The CEB is, what's going to happen to you is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Some of you are going to be taken into captivity. Some of you are going to die by the sword. It's just the way that it is. Yeah. Do you have thoughts about either one of those?
At first I was going to say it seems like the two that are sort of like what will be kind of hang together, and I don't see how the other two fit together. But I can see it actually. Like if you're to be taken captive, you're to be taken captive. Don't think that responding with violence, don't be tempted by that.
Yes.
Because it's tempting.
Yes.
But that's not a better option.
Yeah.
I can see that.
This is the way that I prefer to read it. I think it just has more energy for me. I don't know if I can settle it at the language of like the Greek manuscript evidence or whatever, but when these things are happening to you and people are threatening you, you're going to want to take up the sword.
Yeah.
But don't do it.
Don't do it.
Christians are to be nonviolent. That's the way that I read this text. Mm-hmm. And then we get that line about endurance and faithfulness. Mm-hmm. And endurance there, I think, means just like stay faithful to the end, even when it looks like things are not going to turn out well. Like the sword is the weapon of the beast. And if you take up the weapon of the beast, you have not endured and you have become just like the beast. Mm.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Revelation is not always read as a nonviolent book, by the way.
We can try.
but I kind of think that maybe God is kind of violent sometimes, but I think maybe the call is for us. All right, Amy, we have yet still another beast to discuss. Shall we move on?
Beast number 2. Let's do it.
Then I saw another beast coming up from the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, but it was speaking like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence. It also makes the earth and those who live in it worship the first beast, whose fatal wound was healed. It does great signs, so that it even makes fire come down from heaven to earth in the presence of the people. It deceives those who live on the earth by the signs that it was allowed to do in the presence of the beast. It told those who live on the earth to make an image for the beast who had been wounded by the sword and yet came to life again. It was allowed to give breath to the beast's image, so that the beast's image would even speak and cause anyone who didn't worship the beast's image to be put to death. It forces everyone, the small and great, the rich and poor, the free and slaves, to have a mark put on their right hand or on their forehead. It will not allow anyone to make a purchase or sell anything unless the person has the mark with the beast's name or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who understands calculate the beast's number, for it is a human being's number. Its number is 666. Well, that's clear enough. Shall we move on?
Okay, I just... Yes, let's move on. I just have to tell you that as a child growing up, I didn't know this story. I didn't know anything, whatever. All I knew was the devil's number was 666.
Yeah.
And in my head, you could just shorten that to 6 because, let's get to the point. It's just 6. And I would wake up in the middle of the night and automatically add up the numbers of the time. And if it added up to 6,
oh no,
I was like, oh my God, the devil is here. It was. Oh,
that's very stressful, Amy, because that happens kind of a lot in a day.
It happens a lot. It does happen a lot. It was hard to be me.
Amy.
Yeah, I know.
Well, since we've started there, let's keep going there.
Okay.
So it's clear enough there that the number requires wisdom, that it can be calculated, that it's the number of a human being, and that its number is 666. What's
happening?
What's happening?
I mean, I don't know for sure what's happening. I can tell you that there is a world within Judaism that really likes to translate letters into numbers and assign words numerical values that way. It's a thing called gematria. You can really go in very deep there.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, very popular in the sort of mystically thinking world. But the name Kaiser Neron, if you took Nero's name and spelled out the Greek using Hebrew letters, you would get 666. If you did Nero and didn't have that second N on it, then you get 616, 616, which some other manuscripts have 616. So it seems to be that number is referring specifically to that same emperor that you had mentioned before.
The reason that gematria works, of course, is because Hebrew doesn't have numerals. And so it uses letters of the alphabet to represent numbers. So it would be like if A was 1 or B was 2 in the English alphabet. And so every word has a numerical value. And so Caesar Neron, 666, Caesar Nero, 616. There are other interpretations that 6 is like if 7 is the number of perfection, then 6 is like one short of perfection. And so 666 is like trying to make it to be the perfect creature, but isn't. But I am much persuaded by the Nero reading because I think it fits with other things that we have been seeing. So the first beast, the sea beast, has the number 666, and the land beast is causing people to worship the sea beast. The land beast, so it comes from the land, not from the sea. It has 2 horns.
Like a lamb. That's so confusing, Bobby.
It speaks like a dragon. Talk about the confusion.
Because we just talked about the lamb, and the lamb was Jesus. So it's a little bit like the lamb, 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. So now, like before we had all these different beasts and signs of chaos put together, and now we have like the lamb and Satan, like Jesus and Satan smushed together. That's confusing.
The beast wants you to be confused, right?
Of course.
Before we had people are worshiping the dragon and they don't know that's what they're doing. Now we have people are worshiping the dragon and they think they're worshiping the lamb. Now that is getting real, right? Like you see this lamb and you're like, oh, lammy. And you give it your loyalty. And it turns out that if you listen real close, it's saying things that are dragon-like. It's talking about violence. It's talking about dehumanizing people. But it looks like the lamb. And so you think you're worshiping the lamb. And in fact, you're worshiping the beast who is pointing you to the empire, which is under the authority of Satan. And so you have gotten misled because you looked with your eyes instead of listening.
And it's so interesting. I don't want to take us out of the text too much because I know they're talking about like a creature that actually looks like a lamb. But I just have this question in the back of my mind now. What does it mean for an entity to look like the leader of your religious faith, to look like God, but say things that are like Satan? Because we're not looking at an actual lamb anymore. So like in our world, what constitutes those appearances that would be so misleading? It's just a question to
that is the question. That is such the important question. But I want to pin it for 1 second. Do you have any sense of what, like, if you were trying to think of like what, I don't even know. Well, let's just talk about the earth beast for a minute, the land beast. So it's making people worship the first beast. It's pointing them to that beast. And it's doing it by doing signs and wonders and forcing people to have the mark of that beast in order to participate in the economy. So it's got some tactics. I'm just curious if you were like trying to land that beast. I didn't mean to do that, but it's a land beast and you're going to land. Like trying to picture its reality. You know what I mean? Like Revelation is unveiling some aspect of the human world or the Roman Empire as this lamb. Do you have ways of starting to think about that? Like, what is the lamb beast? I mean,
What is the lamb beast? I mean, it's so interesting because I have to keep reminding myself, it started with the dragon, and then there was this water beast that when you worship the water beast, you actually are worshiping the dragon, but you don't know it. And the water beast is sort of like the empire or emperor or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you have what are the sort of things around that keep directing your attention back to the empire or the emperor and making you believe that's the only option. Like that is your monotheism. Your monotheism is that. And even it's really interesting to me to see that the range of things that creature does.
Yeah.
Like really encouraging the worship of it, like encourage them to make an image of the beast that had been wounded and yet lived, like the like raising up of sort of the mythology of the greatness of this beast entity, and then tying that together with the sort of practical, you can't participate in like these major economies of the world. Like you're putting your own sustainability. That's a weird word, but you're putting your own like ability to care for your basic needs. Somehow that gets tied to worshiping this entity in a way that you can't stay neutral.
Yeah.
You know, like you could try to resist the worship itself and be like, I'm just not getting involved, but I'm going to stay neutral. I'm not going to worship it or not. Like, I just don't want to be in this conversation. But this lamb creature is not allowing that. Like you're either in or you're going to suffer in your body because you will not be able to participate in the economy.
That's really well said, Amy. No, that's beautiful. Many scholars read this. So remember that John is talking to the Christians in Asia Minor, in Turkey, not to the ones living in Rome, not to the ones living in Jerusalem. I mean, maybe he's talking to them too, but directly he's talking to these 7 churches. And these 7 churches would rarely have encountered the emperor, qua emperor, but they would have encountered the imperial cult and the temples and the statues and the coinage that has the emperor's face on it. They would have encountered the mythology told about the emperor and about the empire and about how Caesar Augustus like quelled the forces of chaos and established peace in the world. They would have heard about the Pax Romana and like the peacefulness that we live in could not have existed if it were not for the emperor. And so this kind of, I mean, it's basically like the propaganda arm of the Roman Empire. But it's in the culture, it's in the religious realm, it's in the stories that you tell, it's in the theater, it's in the Colosseums where people are fighting and winning victory. It's like all of these things that are like the essence of just cultured life. Those are the propaganda arm of the empire. And when you look at it, it seems innocuous. It seems lamb-like. It seems lovely. It seems human. But when you really pay attention to what it's doing, it's doing something very dehumanizing, very violent, pointing you to the emperor. What you're saying about the economy, I think, is so beautiful. I mean, it would have worked this way, literally, in the Roman world, in which to participate in the economy, you kind of had to go to the temple and pay homage to the emperors and the gods of Rome. And so it was like that was necessary. And when you went to do that, were you really worshiping God? And if you were a Christian or if you were a Jew who didn't want to worship the Roman gods, like how did you participate in the economy if you didn't want to go to the temple? Would you trade off like, well, I have to go because I got to feed my kids. And so you would go, but you wouldn't really mean it. And if you go, but
do
you
you
don't
like
really
hold
mean
your
it,
nose and just do it? Or at what point?
Yeah. And how long can you hold your nose before you actually start to believe it?
Yeah.
And so I think you're right on it. Like this is the tactics of the empire. It gets at you like culturally, it gets at you economically, and it eventually wears you down. If you don't endure, it points you to worship the empire or the emperor, who is pointing you to worship Satan. So what you think you're doing is going to Walmart and what you're actually doing is worshiping the dragon. Like, that's pretty intense. Like, Revelation just got really, really real.
I think you're going to Walmart. Yeah. Oh, man.
All right, Amy, I want to move us. There's a lot always that we could say. I want to move us to the other image that we're just going to talk about briefly of the Roman Empire. It's worked out in full in Revelation 17 and 18, but we're just going to read the first few verses of Revelation 17. This passage uses the language of prostitute in CEB. Sometimes you'll hear it use the word whore.
That's in my translation.
I talk about her as the promiscuous woman, or sometimes just as woman Babylon, because I try to avoid some of those images. So I just want to acknowledge this is a difficult image, especially from a feminist pro-woman angle, but it's an effective symbol for some reasons. It's effective for the same reasons it's problematic, I think. So we're in 17, 1-6. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls spoke with me. Come, he said, I will show you the judgment upon the great prostitute who is seated on deep waters. The kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality with her, and those who live on earth have become drunk with the wine of her whoring. Then he brought me in a spirit-inspired trance to a desert. There I saw a woman seated on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names. It had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman wore purple and scarlet clothing, and she glittered with gold and jewels and pearls. In her hand she held a gold cup full of the vile and impure things that came from her activity as a prostitute. A name, a mystery, was written on her forehead: Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and the vile things of the earth. I saw that the woman was drunk on the blood of the saints and the blood of Jesus' witnesses. I was completely stunned when I saw her. Amy, I want to start with the image that John first sees in verse 3. Woman seated on the beast wearing purple, scarlet, gold, jewels, pearls. Can you just imagine, like, if you were John, when you first see her, you don't really know what she is or what she's up to?
Or what's in that cup.
Or what's in that cup,
What's in the cup, man.
Yeah, no.
I mean, she looks like the most wealthy and elegant and important of women. I would think she's wearing these, I don't know if it's a word better than fancy. She's wearing jewels. She's wearing fabrics that, indicate real wealth and status.
Yeah.
So, I would think she's a queen.
Yeah. Yeah, she seems beautiful, and she seems wealthy, and she seems like you're kind of drawn to her, I think.
Yeah, sure.
You want to be like next to her. Yeah. It turns out that the kings of the earth have been promiscuous with her. So first of all, she turns out to be a promiscuous woman, which we might not have expected when we just looked at her. Do you have thoughts about what to do with that language of promiscuity?
I mean, that again, it's like a long-standing trope across the Hebrew Bible also of, I feel like there's this real sort of fear in some way of the power of our sexuality to make us do things that we might not ought to do or might not be in our own best interest or the best interest of other people. Almost like in the same way that the chaotic waters, it's the chaos of them that is so frightening. I think there's this sense of sexuality that way too. And so whenever I encounter these female figures who are not properly, they're alluring and seductive, and so they're arousing in onlookers that sort of potential for chaotic action, I'll say, for lack of some better term. And it turns out that she herself participates in that all the time and sees no problem with it. So just on a basic level, I sort of see it as appetite's out of control, and there's no attentiveness to like the meaning of your actions.
Yeah. She reminds you a little bit of, in Proverbs, the strange woman, as she's sometimes called in Proverbs 7, or woman folly in Proverbs 9, that unsuspecting people are drawn, unsuspecting young men are drawn to her. And then it turns out that she's like a gateway to Sheol, I think Proverbs 7 actually says. But very like beautiful and interesting and intriguing on the surface. She is said to be Babylon the Great. That's the name written on her forehead.
Yeah. Talk
to me a little bit about Babylon the Great and what that has to do with this woman, do you think?
You know, it's interesting. I had assumed that the names on people's foreheads were like, this is the entity you serve.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But I don't know whether that's true or not.
I was reading it as like, hello, my name is.
Yeah, no, I could see it as hello, my name is. I mean, maybe it could be either way, but I don't know a whole lot about what's going on historically in this time period. I think of Babylon as, one of the empire that brought about the first big exile out of Jerusalem and sort of that destruction that really changed the face of what the life of Israel was.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's something being pulled in from that, or if it's something that happened later historically. What would you want?
I think you're right on it, Amy. That Babylon was the great city, the great empire, the seat of the great empire that destroyed Israel, and in that sense is sort of the great enemy, like the historic enemy of like, when you think about who's the arch villain of the Hebrew Bible, like Babylon is one of the possible choices. So I think like the way that I'm reading this is that this Babylon the Great is making us think this is the name of a city. This is the name of a city that is actually destroying God's people. And it is trying to get you to connect Babylon to Rome. Many scholars think the image that's here of the woman clothed in scarlet and all of these things is a reference to the goddess Roma, the like patron goddess of the city of Rome. And that so when we see her, we're thinking, oh, this is Rome. Then it turns out that Rome is Babylon, and that she's seated on this 7-headed beast. And later in this passage, it will say the 7 heads are the 7 hills on which she is seated, or something like that. And Rome is the city on 7 hills. And so I think we're supposed to see this woman as, first image is like, ooh, Roma, like that's so beautiful. And then like, oh, wait a second, she's Babylon. She seems to be riding on the sea beast from Revelation 13. And then as you were noting earlier, she's drinking a goblet that is full of blood. And so you go from this like she's beautiful and intriguing and a little seductive to like she's repulsive in some way.
Yeah, I don't want to pull us off, but this like Leviticus thought came into my mind as I was reading that. We know there's a prohibition against drinking blood. Like it is, I don't think we need Leviticus to tell us you shouldn't drink people's blood. Like I think we're all okay with that. But that is very specifically and pointedly prohibited throughout the Hebrew Bible. But I also want to point to the fact, and I don't know what was going on here sort of historically in terms of how Christians thought about the consumption of wine as Jesus's blood.
Yeah.
But I point to this only to say, like, I don't know how people read texts like this without understanding Leviticus.
Yeah.
Like, because there is such richness to these images that can't just be assigned one for one. And so everyone should read Leviticus. Okay, continue.
Amen. So, Amy, in my understanding, these couple chapters of Revelation, and we could read further on in 17, of course, they're trying to give us a set of symbols by which to think about the empire in some way. So here we've got the sort of empire revealed or something like that. And then we'll go back and think about, so what does that mean for Christian readers of this text? But for today, our task is to kind of talk about what do we think these images are trying to convey, or what would we do with them, or how would they connect to contemporary life? What are you thinking about?
Oh man, it's a it's a big question, and it's a big text, and I'm thinking about a book that I just read that is not about mythology per se. It's actually more about history. It's called Zachor, which means remember. It was written in the 80s. It's not a new book, but I just read it. And it is about the intersection of sort of history and memory, historiography and memory within the Jewish community. And the reason I'm thinking about it now is a lot of what the author writes about is the ways in which our stories function in our lives, often as woven into our liturgy and religion, to make sense of what's happening in the world now. And so we can have like history as a discipline, but really how it plays out in our religious lives is more how it becomes our collective memory. I'm not trying to suggest that this is like a historical text and that we should treat it as a historical text. But I feel like by laying out this set of images in a mythological, cosmic paradigm, it's offering us an incredibly powerful way to try to make sense of the things in our world that don't make any sense on the surface of it. Like you have to imagine that there's some way to pull back a veil and this makes sense somehow.
Yes.
But I think I'll be interested to see how this unfolds for me as we read more of Revelation. But what I'm feeling right now about it is both the power and sort of the caution against doing that too freely. Referring back to sort of history and memory, I'm thinking of the way that the Holocaust is invoked so frequently now in the Jewish world that everything feels like the Holocaust, and it's a little overwhelming, in the same way that like in the aisles in the grocery store, I've been reading about the Antichrist since, like every week at the grocery store, someone's the Antichrist.
Yeah.
And that the power of these stories is so inviting that I wonder how they can be used well and powerfully and responsibly and with some nuance.
Yeah.
So that they don't take us from like, oh, here's a problematic situation from like 0 to 100 in 5 seconds because that's not meaningful anymore. But there really is something about the power of a mythical story that just puts our fear in the center of the room and says like, we are afraid something is happening and we don't understand it. And whatever image you can put in the middle of the room around it is not as scary as what we're already experiencing. Like you can't scare us because the world is actually scarier than any beast you can describe. So I really appreciate that it's not shying away from that, the scariness of the world. And I don't know yet how to use that meaningfully.
Yeah.
And I wonder what you think.
That's such an important insight and also caution. It is true that Revelation often gets used in these sort of like one-to-one, like, oh, that person is the Antichrist.
Yeah.
In my mind, what's really useful about Revelation is I think it's exposing in a really smart way the way that empires tend to work. It's talking about Rome, but I think you can look at it in the ways like just the logic by which empires throughout history and today have won people's hearts and minds and the ways that they sustain themselves. And so there's not this sort of one-to-one, but there is kind of a diagnostic effect of Revelation, I think. You were talking about fear, which I think is right. But I don't think this text is only about fear. There's a lot in this text about people who ought to be afraid, but they're not because they have been fooled into thinking that everything is great and good and that they are, worshiping, following, being economic entities within the Pax Romana of the Roman Empire. And it's all to the good. And so I think part of the shocking nature of this imagery is to wake people up to what is happening. So you see that beautiful Roma goddess and you're like, wow, she's beautiful. Like, I want to be part of that. And it's only when you really stop and look close that you realize that she's misleading you. She's drinking blood. Like she's built her wealth on violence, and that you would not have seen that. Or that the beast that speaks like a lamb, you think, oh, this is like a little peaceful creature. It's all good. And maybe it's Jesus. And then you suddenly realize that what it's pointing you to is actually violent again. One of the things that I think is so powerful in this text is it gives you a couple different images for how empires operate. The sort of the seductress image and maybe a little bit the propaganda beast, the land beast image, are like, we're going to win you over as best we can in positive ways. Like, we want to show you wealth. We want to show you opportunity. We want to show you, you can go to the theater and, it's all culture. It's all good. And only if you're really paying attention do you realize that it's not. Then once you've realized that it's not, then the sea beast is like, well, I'll mess you up, right? Like, it's making war, it's killing with the sword. And so there's this like two-pronged, like seduction first, because it's easier, and violence second, because it's what is ultimately necessary to preserve the order. And the Roman Empire operated that way, and often, I think still today, like seduction and violence, the threat of violence, making you ask the question, like, who can defeat it? And so then you think like, there's nothing I can do. Or, like you have to have the mark on your hand to participate in the economy. And you're like, well, I need to eat. I got to feed my kids. So like, what can I do? And so it leaves us in this sort of, I think Revelation 13 and 17 leave us in this position, or it should, of like, oh my goodness, the power of the dragon is alive in the world through human institutions that are oriented toward death and violence and their own wealth and well-being at the expense of like human life. And maybe we didn't see that before we read Revelation 13, but now we do. It doesn't offer us any solutions. Like, that's what the rest of Revelation maybe is going to do, is to say like, okay, well, here's what comes next. I'm not sure it's going to be very satisfying to you, Amy, but
no.
But Revelation 13 is trying to like pull back the veil and say, no, this is what's actually going on in the world. And there it is. And you can make your own connections to life today. Like, they're like at the tip of my tongue, like all the ways we can see these things.
Yeah.
But once you've started to unveil Rome in Revelation, then it's not a far step to unveil our own time and place. So, Amy, next week we're going to step back in the book of Revelation to Revelation 5, where we're going to see what Revelation thinks of as the true lamb, who not only looks like a lamb, but actually is a lamb. And the sort of this key, I think, the key symbol for Christian readers and Christian like livers of life in the Roman Empire, like, this is the symbol that is going to be the alternative to these beasts that we've seen in Revelation 13.
Well, good. But they need a counterbalance, so I look forward to that.
They do. Amy, I appreciate so much you're taking the time and expending the intellectual and emotional energy to read these texts with us.
It's fascinating.
All right.
Have a good week.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of Bible Worm. If you've enjoyed this free podcast, we hope you'll help us keep it going by joining our Patreon for as little as $4 per month. You can also sign up for other goodies like early access, video lectures, weekly liturgies, and more. Visit patreon.com/BibleWormPodcast for details.
Bible Worm is produced and edited by Bobby Williamson. Our theme song is sung by Colin Bagby, and our theme music is The World at Large by Dano Songs. Many thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping make this podcast possible.
Next week, we'll continue our summer series on Revelation and resistance with the image of the Lamb in Revelation 5, 1-14. Until then, keep on digging.